Have you ever wished you had some solid tips for how to stop arguing over household chores? On today's episode, Liz and I are joined by Dr. Julie Hanks to discuss how to manage disagreements and engage in healthy discussions with your spouse about household labor. We talk about expectations, invisible work, and her partnership model of family organization. Julie Diaz-Avedo Hanks holds a PhD in marriage and family therapy and is a licensed therapist specializing in the intersection of faith, family relationships, and women's mental health for 3 decades. She's the owner of Wasatch Family Therapy, author of The Assertiveness Guide for Women, host of Ask Dr. Julie Hanks podcast, adjunct faculty in the MSW program at Utah Valley University, and an online content creator. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection. I'm psychologist Dr. Liz Hale, along with the professor, Dr. Dave Schramm, and together we have dedicated our life's work to bringing you the best we have in valid marital research, but along with just a few tips and tools to help you create the marriage of your dreams. Have you ever wished that you had some solid tips for how to stop arguing over household chores? Well, if so, you're not alone. Our next guest says that a healthy partnership in the home happens when the unpaid labor is divided equitably. But who determines what's equal and what's fair? Well, here to help is Utah's own Dr. Julie Hanks. Welcome to Stronger Marriage Connection, Julie.
Thank you so much, Liz and Dave. Happy to be here.
Oh, we finally get to meet. Thank you for joining us, and especially with your busy life. Dave, let me bring you in here too. So who do you think, friends, brings up the suggestion of more equitable household chores? Who brings it up more often, men or women?
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say it's women, Liz.
That's been my experience, Julie, is that women are more apt to bring that up. Yours too?
Absolutely. 100%.
Mm-hmm. And is that often because we are doing too much? We kind of do this to ourselves a bit. Because we do like how, I'll speak for myself. I like things done a certain way, let's just say. So sometimes I shoot myself in the foot.
Yes. And women are socialized to feel like home and family are a reflection of them and their value. And so it's not just us doing it to ourselves. It's women being taught and being modeled by our parents and grandparents that women are responsible for unpaid work. And what's happened is society has changed in the last couple of generations. Women have entered the workforce a lot more readily than men have entered the unpaid labor force. And so women are the ones bringing it up because they're the ones in pain. They're the ones overwhelmed, in my therapy practice, I don't think I've ever met a woman who wasn't overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Who wasn't doing more than her share, wasn't doing too much, wasn't stressed. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, that's just so true. You write and speak often, Julie, about a partnership model of family organization. And I love your quote. You say, instead of seeing your family as a hierarchy of people and needs, focus on connection and relationships. Move from competition to compassion. Do you care to share more about this end goal?
Yeah. So in the traditional family model, there's an implied hierarchy where it's like man, woman, children. And in a partnership model, everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone's needs matter. Everyone's voice matters. And the parents are in charge of actualizing the entire group. So it's not one person is there to serve. So often it's, women do the unpaid labor to serve and support the man in a heterosexual relationship and the children. And that's absolutely a valid way to do things. And it doesn't work for some women. And so I created a model that actually puts everybody on the same playing field. And then you go, okay, how do we focus on connection and supporting each other instead of just mom supports everyone else?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yep. Yeah, that I know the research a little bit on this, Julie, and it's interesting because almost all the studies, at least that I have seen, is that men, when they report on how much housework, household labor and things that they do, they tend to overestimate. At least the women, says, "How much do you do?" I say, "Oh yeah, I do a lot." And then they ask her, "How much does he do?" And well, not a whole lot. Yeah, it's interesting, this uneven distribution, and even kind of how much we think that we are doing. Yeah, what do you mean? I unloaded the dishwasher, right? I did my duty for the day, that type of thing. So how do couples typically fall into an uneven division of household labor, and what are the common pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah. So a huge problem is that often men are talking about behavior. I did this. I did this. Women are talking about conception, planning, and execution. Men are just talking about the execution. I did this because you told me to. But the planning and the conceptualizing and planning are 2/3 of the activity, remembering to do it and making sure you have the resources available. You have dish soap, you have whatever needs to be, on hand to do that chore. And so part of what I'm passionate about is helping men and women understand the burden of the mental load and the planning and execution, or the planning and conception of unpaid household work. And so I think that's where we're talking about different things. Women are talking about all of it, and the men are saying, well, I did this. I took care of the kids Saturday. The actual behavior.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. So how do we even get us started here? Because I know for many men, and we often joke about this, that is we need to talk, like the worst words that, men want to hear about this. How do we get things right from the get-go?
Yeah, I've been in a partnership, marriage and family, and we've been attempting to implement this for 35 years. And what I did, I think it was the first week that we were married. My husband didn't know what he was getting into, but I said, now why? I just started questioning the assumptions of who does what. And I think if you can start that from the very beginning, like, okay, how are we going to divide this and not just go with kind of traditional gender roles? At the time, when we first got married, we were both working 2 jobs and in school. And I said, why is writing 500 thank you notes my job because I'm a woman? That makes 0 sense. So here's your 250. I'll do my 250. And I don't know if he ever sent them out. But
that's so funny, Julie. That's so funny.
But I'm like, I'm not going to do just what's expected. It needs to be equitable, right? And so I often say it's not who does what, because you can have traditional roles and have a partnership family if you've both decided that that's what works for you. So I say it's not who does what, it's who decides who does what, right? If you're deciding this is what I love, this is where my gifts are, great. But you decide together, what do you care most about? What are your talents? What are your gifts? And you divide it up based on that. And then what's equitable based on time and availability.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that. I'll even share with students. I'll say, hey, even sit down and with this, boyfriend, fiance, even your spouse, and talk about how things were done in each other's households, not as a way that that's how it should be done, but as a way to see, oh, I see why this expectation, so just share. Oh, yeah, I grew up in a household with this. Not that it's right or wrong, but just for understanding their perceptions and all of the expectations that we come in. Do you agree with kind of sitting down and talk about how things were done in each other's house?
Yeah, because that's our default, is what we saw, right? We either do exactly what we saw, or we kind of recognize it and then try to do the opposite. And sometimes the overcorrection can be too much too. So it's kind of finding that balance and having the discussion and making sure that we make our assumptions explicit.
Yes. Yeah. Love it.
I'm so inspired, Julie, that you had this insight as a newlywed woman, probably in her 20s, right? I'm just guessing,
Yeah.
that already you thought, wait a minute, well, why am I doing all 500 thank you notes? I don't think that would have even dawned on me. Probably not even now. It's funny how many, in just, just roles that I just take on because of history, because I think it's my role. I just want to admire that. Where did that come from in you? Do you think that insight or that strength, was that modeled for you? Or was that just you? Did you just come that way?
It was, uh, it was probably because I had already been in therapy and developed a little bit of a like bud of a sense of self. And I also had big dreams and the model big dreams in addition to family life. And so I thought the model that I saw isn't going to work for me because my mom was a stay-at-home mom of 9 kids and that was her life and that worked for her, but that wasn't the life I wanted. And so I said to my husband, we have to figure out a different way than what we both were raised with. And so I think
wow, I admire that. I need to clearly get a sense of self and have some bigger dreams.
Oh, right.
There's probably some truth to that. I hear many women say just how annoyed they get when their husband says, so they walk in, he walks into the kitchen where she is already working and says, oh, so what can I do for you? And she wants to just say, and she often does, can't you just look around? Can't you see what needs to be done and then do it? Any suggestions for how to better handle this well-meaning statement of, what can I do for you? Or just tell me what to do.
First of all, it's not for me. It's not for the woman in a heterosexual relationship. It's for the family. So language is big. I teach a lot, like, do not use help. What can I do to help you? No. What can I do to contribute to our family life? What can I do to contribute to our household? It's not helping me. This isn't my house. This is our house, right? So using shared responsibility, shared language. It's not my kitchen, my food. It's ours. And so that also gives kids who come into the family, if children, are there, to have them feel responsible. This is my house. It's, I have to keep it clean. I lost my train of thought.
That. So what can I do to help us even would be nice, right? What can I do to help us?
And so I really suggest that couples sit down and, say, like, okay, so generally in my experience, it's the wife wanting the husband to contribute more to the unpaid work. So say, what is something you care about that you will be 100% responsible and I never have to talk to you about it or remind you or anything again. And start kind of carving out, responsibilities like cleaning the kitchen or laundry or grocery shopping or whatever. And so it's not like it's a reminder. Oh, have you gone grocery shopping? How here I made the list. No, he makes the list. He goes grocery shopping. And so find one or two of those to start where the male partner takes over something and there's no more discussion about it.
Wonderful. Partnership, right? He doesn't want a mother anyway, right? He wants a lover. He doesn't want a mother reminding him. That gets old for both parties.
Right.
I like it.
Now, Julie, there's going to be, I can see it right now. There's couples who are listening to this, or, there's a wife who's like, I feel like as I listen to this, that things are not fair, whatever, fair, quote, air quotes, that. How do you recommend couples handle situations where there's a partner who feels like, man, I'm doing everything and he just comes home from work and watches TV or whatever the situation is?
Yeah. I think it's really important to frame work differently, that paid work and unpaid work are equally valued. Both have been working full time. So it's not like the paid worker gets to come home and relax. No, just as much as the unpaid worker, so it's about negotiating. And so we tend to, in a hierarchical society, we tend to value paid work above unpaid work. And so the paid worker gets more benefits and gets more time off and more recreation and that kind of thing generally. And so having that conversation about, look, we've both been working full time. Now what else needs to be done in the home and how can we split that and divide it up so it's equitable. And then, oh, you need 15 minutes to decompress. Great. Take 15 minutes. I'll take 15 minutes after you're done, and negotiate it. So one worker is not, their needs are not more, prioritized above everyone else because they're both working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well said.
And this is not just a one and done conversation, Julie, right? Because life is changing, right? We got a new job, new babies, maybe even now a new empty nest.
Yeah.
What are your best suggestions on creating this fair chore division throughout the life cycle?
Yeah, I think it's important for both couples to really tune into resentment. So if either couple is starting to resent the other one, that's a clue that maybe a conversation needs to be had and things need to be shifted.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So whatever that resentment is, kind of a sign that, like, okay, we need to change something. We need to set different boundaries or draw different responsibilities. So paying attention to resentment, and then having an ongoing, evolving conversation. Like I said, we've been having this conversation for 35 years on a regular basis, and it's changed based on, kids and jobs and unemployment and double employment, and,
Yes.
traveling, and
I like that it can change, that with this kind of season of life, or if my wife is not feeling well or she's really busy with something, we just, we can step in and try to see it from their perspective. So what about a situation, let's say that, we committed, I'm going to do these things. I love doing these things. You're going to do those things. And now I don't keep up on my side, maybe the lawn or the yard, whatever it is outside starts just going to pot. My wife's like, honey, you said you were going to do this, so I'm getting at, what if someone says, hey, you're not really living up to what we agreed on this and you're not doing it. Any ideas, suggestions on approaching that conversation?
Yeah, I think that's a bigger deal because it's basically you're not keeping your word. You said that. So in what other ways are you not keeping your word to me? It's not about the lawn or the dishes. It's like, I want to be married to somebody who does what they say they're going to do. And so this is a bigger problem than just not doing your part in unpaid work.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. It goes a little bit deeper, doesn't it?
It does. And I think women struggle with this, but I would say you don't go mow the lawn yourself or do the dishes yourself and then resent the person. Just let it go. Don't say anything. And you keep your word.
Okay. Yeah.
Or, Julie, is this a possibility? You tell me. I like your expertise here. Or if I really can't handle it and I have to do dishes in order to start dinner, I could do the dishes, but just not have resentment, right? Is that an option too? What if you just need clean dishes?
But that's also enabling. And so over time, I don't know that can happen without resentment unless you just go, well, I'm not going to trust my partner to do what they say they're going to do.
I was thinking, I guess, of a one-off. I guess I'm thinking of those things that are just occasional.
Yeah. Well, of course. And if there's a situation where, for example, where my husband, he does Sunday dinners. So say he has a meeting and it's like, I'll go, oh, hey, what can I do to, because I know he has something. And so you have to be reasonable and compassionate with it too. It's not like, keeping track. But as you both know, when one person is carrying more of the load and feels taken advantage of, like that's not going to create a loving, right? It's not going to have good sex. You're not going to have good communication. And so, I think if both partners are committed to supporting each other and really listening and hearing each other and what they value, then, they're going to work it out.
Yeah. So it's more of a pattern of like inconsistencies. And you're like, hey, I thought we're going to split this. We said that you were going to work on that. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then direct communication, like, hey, you're on dishes. I can't do dinner. So do you want to swap? I'll do the dishes and you can do dinner tonight. Like, what's your plan? And kind of give it back to them.
Yeah, let me pick your brain a bit about how we can do this more efficiently this week. I love that. There are so many differences between partners, Julie and Dave, as we know. What is a clean kitchen to me is not necessarily a clean kitchen to my husband Ben. So, what's the best way to honor these differences around cleanliness, around priorities? What do you think, Julie?
Yeah, so the book Fair Play by Eve Rodsky is a great resource, and she talks about a reasonable standard of care. And so you can go through, if you do the Fair Play model, there's cards. It's really a great way to divide household chores. But you go through and you decide together what defines a clean kitchen. And we agree on it. And one person may have to lower their expectations and one may have to raise their expectations, right? And generally it's the female who has higher expectations, again, because women have been socialized to feel like their kitchen or their home is a reflection of their value as a woman. That's why the expectations are higher, because men are like, I don't care. My self-worth is not at stake here. Who cares?
Mm-hmm.
We'll be right back after this brief message. And we're back. Well, let's dive right in. Julia, I'm curious, what's your take on, or any suggestions from when one works from home and it's off kind of, traditional type of arrangement. One partner works from home and another one, or works away from home and one is taking care of the home. As far as dividing up labor, any ideas or suggestions for couples? I have a daughter who's someone, in the first few years of marriage. I've got a daughter who's probably going to be married, this coming summer. Any thoughts about that type of arrangement?
Yeah. Talking about what are the things that need to be done after the paid worker is home and dividing those things up.
And it's going to look different, for every couple or whatever that is. But the point is, you have to have that discussion and not have this expectation without actually verbalizing it.
Right. So we need to get dinner needs to be had, the kitchen needs to be clean, bath time for the kids, pajamas, reading time, homework, blah, blah, blah. How are we going to divide that? Because what's not fair is for one person to be working 8 to 10 hours and the other to be working 15 to 20. And being the one waking up with babies in the night. And that's not going to create a lot of happiness. And both partners need rest, need friend time, recreation, those kind of things too. So it's really about what's left, what unpaid work is left to be done, and how can we divide that in the time that we're together.
I love that. Yeah, keeps it simple.
It's not a very romantic question to bring up before marriage, but it's probably good to do so when dating. Julie, would you say?
Oh, absolutely.
Just to get on the same page. Do we even both want children?
Right. Yeah.
Do you do that in your pre-marriage therapy as well? Let's talk about household life.
Absolutely. Because this is one of the biggest complaints in marriages by women. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't feel like I have a partner. And I think that we need to think about it differently. It's not like you do this, I do this. It's like, how can we work together to make sure family life runs and that it's equitable? And it's not like we prioritize the paid work above the unpaid work. Again, unpaid work is work, and it's valid work, and it's important work, and it's necessary work. And so valuing those equally, when women will say, well, my husband makes X amount per year, or he won't let me spend. I'm like, it's half your money. He can only do what he's doing because you're home doing the unpaid work. Right. So you're facilitating the paid work. It's we're partners in this.
Yeah, I love that. I want to echo something that Liz has talked about on another episode when we talked some of these similar type of issues, the importance of of gratitude, of expressing appreciation, of kindness, of gratitude. You just can't overemphasize it enough, especially I would say when it comes to dividing up household work and these chores around the house. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I'm laughing because in my family, we have a signal that means lay on the gratitude and make a big deal about this. So we say, ooh, ah. So, I'll say, ooh, ah, did you see the lawn? And he'll be like, ooh, ah, the yard looks so good. Oh my gosh. Or like, I'll say, ooh, ah, did you see the front room? Like, oh, you redecorated. It looks so good. So like we try to take responsibility for letting the other person know, like, I'm needing some validation. I put some extra work in here. Like, I'm needing something from you. Make a big deal about this.
It's a really cute way to do that. I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
And my kids do it too. Like, ooh, I made dinner. Ooh, ah, like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing,
Yeah. Love it. At this point in the podcast, Julie, we like to ask our guests a couple of questions in honor of the name of our podcast. This first one is, what do you feel like is the key to a stronger marriage connection?
Talking about your expectations. So the best question that my husband and I discovered early on is, what are your expectations for today? And to actually be explicit with expectations, because then there's a chance that they'll be met. If we don't express them, like, there's not a very high likelihood that they'll be met. What are your expectations for today? I think if we can communicate expectations, we can meet each other's expectations more often than not and create a really good relationship.
Yeah, because the opposite will bring up something I'm glad that you brought up earlier. It will create resentment. If I'm expecting this and I don't get it, then yeah, this gap is full of resentment. Yeah, if I'm not, sharing, talking about, I love that. Yeah, that's great.
Sometimes in marriage therapy, we say don't have expectations, and yet you can't help but have expectations, right? It's just part of our dreams and our wishes and how we see the world. So I like how you say that. Good for your husband. And I'm sure that's gone through, good for the two of you to work together and to be so healthy. What are your expectations for today? Yeah. That's beautiful. Where can our listeners, Julie, find out more about you and all the free resources you share so willingly with all of us?
Oh, thank you. So I own Wasatch Family Therapy Clinics in Utah. So that's wasatchfamilytherapy.com. We see kids on up to older adults, do lots of couples and family work as well. And then drjuliehanks.com. I have courses. I have a partnership families course. I do workshops and groups, Q&As. And then I'm at Dr. Julie Hanks on most social media platforms.
Wonderful. So your website is, I'm trying to think how I got to your website. Tell me your website address.
drjuliehanks.com.
Okay, that's it. All right.
Yeah.
I keep thinking that's an email, but yep, that would be your website too. Yes, you have a large practice along the Wasatch Front, Julie, with many talented therapists. Thank you for having that for many of us to refer to. I'm so grateful.
Yes. And for our listeners, we'll be sure to put those links in our show notes. So be sure to check those out as well. Okay. From all that we've discussed today, Julie, what is your main takeaway of the day? What's a message you want our listeners to remember?
Unpaid work is work, and it's just as important as paid work. And so value the work that you do that's unpaid, and value the work that your partner does that's unpaid. I just think that division has created a lot of problems in families. So recognize and value unpaid work.
Love it. Yeah. Liz, what about you? What's your takeaway of the day with Dr. Julie Hanks?
I love it. I love it, Julie. I think, how to do the division without creating division, right? Without creating more division. And so I love that. I hadn't really thought of unpaid labor and paid work, unpaid work and paid work, I think is maybe how you say it. Mm-hmm. And then coming home, and once the paid worker comes home, then how do we divide work from there? I had never thought of it that way. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's kind of when that second part of the day begins.
Yeah.
Lovely. And Dave, what struck you the most from our time with Julie today?
Yeah, this has been great, Julie. I think that
Thank you.
In addition to unpaid work and paid work, you brought up kind of that invisible or that worry work, right? That I think that is It needs to be, hey, thanks so much for planning this out. Or, around the holiday season, my wife, she loves, she takes over, but she loves it. The buying the presents for the kids, and she just loves that. But there's a lot of actually mental planning and searching and on Amazon for, hours and deals. And she loves to get a deal. So I need to be more grateful, I think, as her husband. Thank you so much. You put in like literally countless hours on there going through that and making sure that this person has, okay. But a lot of that is mental. Yeah, you can hit a button to buy something, but man, that's a lot of mental work, not let alone, planning the kids' activities or I need to bring this treat tonight, or a lot of that, that worry or that mental work. I need to be more appreciative.
Yeah. And it's invisible. It's hard to see until we name it and look at it. And I need to give a shout out to my husband who expressed appreciation today. I was buying, we had a couple of wedding announcements. So I was on the computer buying gifts, and he just said, thank you so much for buying gifts for people that matter to us in our lives. And he recognized that's something that I take on, that I'm the one who buys the wedding gifts, and those things that we do to maintain relationships are sometimes the most important things, but they're invisible often. And so I love your suggestion, Dave, to show appreciation and really start seeing the invisible work that your partners are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, look for it. Because Julie, I don't know about you, but I don't think that's ever, I've never seen that on a list. It's like, okay, dishes and yard work and things. It's not who's going to buy wedding presents. I've never seen that on anyone's list. So there are countless things.
The book Fair Play has a card deck that actually has things like that.
Oh.
And one of the cards is invisible beings. So who is the Tooth Fairy? Who is Santa Claus? Who's the Easter Bunny? Right?
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that resource, Fair Play card deck and book, for people who really want to dig into dividing household chores. But yeah, there's a lot that we don't think about when it comes to unpaid work at home.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to link those as well in the show notes. What a great resource. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that as well, Julie. Well, we appreciate so much. Thanks for coming on today and sharing so much wisdom and tips and help for couples. Thanks for joining us, Julie.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Such an honor. Well, that's all for now, friends. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. And do remember, it's the small things that create a stronger marriage connection. Take care now.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.